Welcome to the Soul Body Wholeness Podcast.
Each episode is a living, breathing transmission. Together, we will explore deep, nuanced, and controversial topics of the soul. Welcome to your community of sensitive seekers and deep feelers.
Welcome back, Goldsbrand.
All right, my dear friend, Christina Marie Echevarria. Welcome to the Soul Body Wholeness Podcast. Here we are once again. It's been maybe over a month since I've recorded one of these. Been going through a lot, as you have as well. And yeah, I'm so curious where this conversation's going to go. I've been dying to have you on as a guest. You've come on as sort of a soundboard oracle in the past. But yeah, how are you feeling today? How are you coming into this?
First of all, thanks so much for having me and offering the opportunity to just go into a portal and see what wants to emerge. I feel excited about this energy of emergence. I feel like this winter was so deep, and really the past couple of years was a very specific cycle of initiation and chapter of deep alchemy and soul embodiment and medicine embodiment. And now, as we are crossing the threshold of the new lunar new year and many really profound astrological movements on a collective level, on a human evolutionary level, I feel such a quickening and an excitement to step more into sharing and visibility and taking action. And like we've been talking about in our conversations, there is this really potent moment right now where there's a lot of alchemy that's happening through just taking the action and letting that move the energy and allow that to open the path. So I'm feeling the season of, we're going into spring, many just forces in our universe supporting a greater physicalization and sharing of our medicine and the codes we have to offer. So it feels really aligned to be here in this space with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely feeling that, like even just sitting down and doing this podcast, there's so many waves and layers of resistance and perfectionism that have weighed me down for a long time with a lot of my endeavors. But, this is the moment. This is, as one of my teachers just shared with me, like the red carpet is rolled out. Are we ready to walk on it? Or are we going to keep trying to prep and plan? It's really through taking the action and, that whole take messy action thing. I think it's great and not so great. And this is the moment of sort of the understanding of the nuance of that. Like it is time to take the action and learn through doing. So here we are taking a dose of our own medicine, talking about the thing and doing the thing. And so just to back up and give some context, Christina is one of my dearest friends, one of the most multidimensional humans and one of the most multidimensional relationships that I've ever walked with another human. We have such a soul kindredness, soul contract, soul curriculum that we're here to work together. And as I've come more and more into my path and my purpose and a deep knowing of who I am, especially over this past year, the right relationships have just shown up, and each one of them are so multidimensional, multifaceted, and you might be one of the most of those categories in my life, definitely in my life currently. So I'm so grateful to have you here. You've served as such a business oracle, business mentor, business coach, and just soul teacher for me. And we've been each other's teachers, but yeah. So that gives a little bit of context. There's so much more that I could share, but before doing that, I'm just going to invite in just a moment of presence so we can really drop in and open the channel, because you and I really dance in the transpersonal realms. It's sort of become our comfort in some ways. And we have beautiful humans that we work with and our rawness and our realness. But as we've come more and more deeply into our medicine, we have this capacity to go really deep into the transpersonal, meaning connection to spirit, connection to soul, connection to support systems in the unseen realms. And so that's what we're going to call in here. And also, we're calling in the support of the unseen realms to sort of hold the space so that we can bridge a little bit more of our human into the experience. So I'm going to be asking you a little bit about your story, because that story of the human really supports the context of Christina, the transpersonal oracle, priestess, ancient being. How does that sound?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. So, dear listener, join us, if you so can, in your space and time, in the quantum, feeling your connection to your feet, to this earth, maybe closing your eyes and taking a deep breath deep into your lower belly, deep into your center, your dantian, deep into your feet and your roots in the earth, and just calling upon these terrestrial energies of the earth to come in through your feet, your legs, deep into your center, deep into your being, feeling this foundational opening and connection and fortification. This foundation that allows all the energy and information of expansion and multidimensionality to bridge in a really good and integrated way so that we can physicalize all of the teachings, all of the downloads, and just bring it into this world to be able to serve, to be able to crystallize it and bring it into structure and form. So we start here at the foundation in our roots, and we just breathe and feel that connection. And once we do this, we can open up our hearts, we can open up our crowns, we can allow ourselves to be bathed in the light of the celestial energies of above. Just feeling that light come in from above, filling your whole body, filling every cell, every space. Feeling your inner energy body filling up and feeling your outer energy body filling up, feeling the space that you take up outside of your physical body. And we'll just take one deep breath into that. Squeezing yourself, feeling all that good juju you just cultivated in your physical body to be in this meat jacket, as they say, this meat suit. But it's so much more than that. It's this multidimensional, crystalline, liquid, solid, minerally, made up of all the elements, cosmic soup that we get to come together in as this fractalized piece of God. Like you're that, I'm that, and we get to come together and using the power of our voice bring forth through vibration and sound this light that just entered our bodies. How cool is that, Christina?
It's really
Let's
cool.
go.
I went through a whole experience where I was like, "Oh, I know why I'm here. It's just to birth a transmission of love." My journey has been such a journey of embodying the frequency, the living transmission of love, and there's nothing I want more than to share more about my humans experience as well in journeying from the feeling of separation from love into this moment where I just feel like there's so much overflow and so much I want to give and offer. And so my prayer is may this be a transmission and an offering of, yeah, of deep service to all and just feeling my heart super, super open through that guided little experience.
We open the channel and it just happens, right?
It does.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for those reflections. So, let's set the stage and dive in. I don't even know how much of your story that I know. So, this is one of my favorite parts about doing this podcast. I really get to have this insider glimpse into a person's beginnings. So, as wherever you want to go with it, sort of setting a little bit of the stage, bits and pieces of your story to get to this remembrance of who you are and why you are here.
Yeah, I would love to share. And yeah, just to start off sharing a little bit of what I, do right now and just a little bit of the context of what it's leading up into is
Hmm.
that I steward a temple business that has multiple different facets. I steward an in person temple where I serve tea ceremonies and offer transformational experiences for community, and really am anchoring this physical pillar of what I feel is like this little portal of heaven on earth that's continually being birthed and evolving through my own curriculum and embodiment. And it's just like where I pour forth a lot of medicine in my local community. And I also steward a temple and what has revealed to me as a living mystery school of soul alchemy and devotional service for those walking a path of mastery and deep devotion to living and birthing their soul's dharma on this earth in service to this prophecy of so many ancient souls incarnating at this time to truly anchor new paradigms that support the awakening and the remembrance and the evolution of consciousness for humanity. So it's like there's some really kind of bigger transpersonal themes
Yep.
that I feel like really anchored in that higher level channel of what I'm in service to. And it really does feel like these very prophetic times. And I'm so grateful to be meeting up with my soul family and all these ancient beings who deeply remember and who are so advanced and powerful and so full of light and higher frequencies. And it's just such a profound existence. And in order to get to this place, yeah, there's been such a wild journey of being conditioned, being traumatized, being feeling separate, and then throughout many, many years of awakening and devotion and just kind of this drive to know myself and know who I am and why I'm here. And for me, these like also these bigger transpersonal questions of what is the soul? What is God? Who are we? Why are we here as humans on this earth? Like these bigger questions that have really driven me into this curiosity and
Do
this big
you
context.
do you have a sense of when you started asking, feeling some of that angst and some of those questions, at least in this lifetime? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I'll go back to being a child, and I'm a mental projector in human design, and knowing that now and having that information over the past decade has been really supportive to help me to understand more of my experience as a child. Because I had a very beautiful childhood, and I was also extremely energetically sensitive, 7 open energy centers, and kind of in this experience of constantly merging with and amplifying my environment and feeling like a deep sense of overwhelm, anxiety, depression, and really just now I know was being just filled with other people's energy and had no tools and no skills to be able to feel what is me and then what is everything else around me. So I really feel now looking back so much compassion for this little girl who was so sensitive and artistic and loved nature and was so passionate about poetry and music and art, and was also living in this, the world that we're in, and was being highly, highly conditioned by everything around me and really just amplifying constantly the emotions and the frequencies and the energies of everything around me, and internalizing that. And I remember just feeling the sense of like just heaviness, density, contraction, wanting to escape, wanting to run away, and also feeling a sense of like, who am I? It's like, it seems like everyone else has the sense of who they are, but I kind of don't have this consistent experience. And it felt kind of overwhelming and confusing for me. And the sense of like, I don't really know who I am and have this very specific trajectory. I was more like fluid in that way, and I feel like I could chameleon a lot. Um, and so
Yeah.
the piece about the energetic sensitivity is really important because that led to me forming many coping mechanisms to numb and to put on masks. And I think the numbing and the coping and the control mechanisms to protect myself from the overwhelm is really big. And that really led me on a path of forming these habits, these patterns of how do I escape my experience? How do I just like kind of numb and ease the intensity that I'm feeling? And so I had this beautiful, path, very smart, highly intelligent. I was actually really amazing at school. I'm just like had this brilliant mind, but I also was not processing any of my emotions. I had this deep sensitivity and the energy was not moving and just continued to, I feel like, create more and more of a feeling of stagnation and density. And so that led to using eventually like alcohol as a way to numb and to cope, using relationships as ways to numb and cope and feel better. And so, just like all these different coping mechanisms that continued to create more density and more disconnection. So, I really feel like my curriculum was this journey into, okay, being super conditioned and forming all of these protections and these coping mechanisms and these ways of like existing in this world. And eventually, my path of awakening led to the like unraveling of all of that, right? And learning how to decondition, how to clear out the density, how to feel again, and ultimately how to keep letting go of more and more of those behaviors and ways of being, uh, as like I, discovered more and more of my own internal energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to pause because I like to pause throughout the stories because there's so much, there's so many themes that get spoken to, and just breathe for a moment into just the immensity of what I imagine a lot of listeners can resonate with. Your story is maybe like 99% my story, you know, similar human design where I'm a reflector. So all open centers, feeling super sensitive and like energetically sensitive and having no context or training or understanding. Growing up in a loving family that isn't in any of these realms or worlds. The best that they have is what the Western medical industrial complex is providing, which is, therapy, or you go to the doctor if you have a stomach ache, these types of things. And to be really lost in that and confused in the curriculum can be so confusing for us who haven't even reached a certain level of spirituality where there's this integration of all of that. There might be a conceptual, like it's got to be for something. Well, that for something is the learning through polarity. It's a big part of what our souls came here to do, is to go so deep into the contrasts of experience before being able to integrate it into wholeness and in, all of the paradox solution middle way that gets birthed from these intense polarity experiences, intense polarity curriculums. So it sounds like you and I and many people who are listening, I imagine, had this curriculum of intensity, which is the normalized Western human experience. It's not even capital T trauma, growing up in a war-torn country, anything like that. Like, we were born with this specific, highly sensitive nervous system soul that can sense all of the distortions that are happening that might not look like major capital T traumas, your rapes and your big physical violences and war and all of these things. But our systems, our countries in the West especially, are so disconnected from nature that as a result, and as a result of all of the corporations and capitalism and all of these things, the severance from community, it's resulted in all of these smaller transgressions against the soul, against the aliveness and the realness and the rawness and the vulnerability of the human experience. This prioritization of the comfort, this prioritization of safety, security, status, that's the word. This, all of these priorities have created this false matrix reality that we're all living in. That's just so normalized that most people don't even see it, how detrimental it is to the human soul. Well, some of us, and a lot more of us right now at this time in the past 20, 30 years, are hyper overdrive, coming here to earth, being born with this super sensitive system to feel all of that, to feel all those transgressions, to feel all those assaults, so that we really understand what's happening at a deep level. And as we come into our awakening, we start to understand how we can solve some of these problems. Would you agree / have anything to share on that?
Yeah, well, I think it all makes more and more sense as I go. Like, as I continue transmuting deeper and deeper layers of density, karma, just being able to be like, wow, my soul is like so high frequency and has been clearing my lineage, my bloodlines of things that didn't even happen to me, but have been carried, like huge patterns and experiences. Like, I've watched it ripple through my ancestral line. I, at this point, have gone through many descents into like falls of consciousness of humanity and seeing like our fractures of our of our consciousness. And so, like, as I've gone deeper and deeper, it's like there's this repair process that's happening, especially at this time. There's so much light on the planet coming in now. And what light does is it allows us to go deeper and deeper into the places of fracture and actually heal, alchemize, and like repair and restore what I consider our like original blueprint of union with our soul and union with God. And one of the most empowering pieces and codes that I feel like I carry from my journey of many, many years of deep alchemical processes is that I believe that we're here to embody the thing that we feel like we were lacking or that was missing in our reality. So for
Yeah.
me, feeling like I was lacking being understood, feeling understood and stewarded in my unique sensitivity and in my design and my specific role that was not able to be fully reflected to me, and also just feeling this lack for me of self-love and lack of connection to the true benevolence of God, the true benevolence of the creator and my identity as this precious beloved child of God who's unconditionally loved and supported. There was just that was missing for me. And it's interesting because as I've continued to journey with the transmutation process and really the process of becoming the medicine, those things that I uniquely in my soul blueprint feel like I was lacking, I now have become the living embodiment of, and now I get to experience that first for myself, but then that's what I give and offer others. I felt so
Yeah.
misunderstood that I became obsessed, first of all, with understanding myself. And I, by the grace of God, was introduced to many different systems of like the soul blueprint to really understand more of who I am and what my role is, and also just layers of remembrance that have happened on a very soul level. And so now part of my gift is being able to see and understand others really, really deeply, reflect their essence, and hold up a mirror for their gifts and their multidimensional brilliance and give that thing that I so wanted. And so that's just so brilliantly encoded into this incarnation. So moving from I'm a
Yeah.
victim to that, and that was all bad and that was all wrong, into being like, wow, what if that was the perfect setup for me to go so deep into those realms so I could gift that frequency into creating a new reality for other people.
This is literally one of my favorite aspects of soul work is that moment or that shift that people have where they realize they go from, oh, not me, I could never do that, when there's something calling them to teach on something or guide something or just to become more masterful in something. They don't see that as themselves because that's the exact topic or theme that they've struggled with their whole life. So they've felt like inferior, to anybody who would be able to support people with that specific theme. Yours being, you know, creating that experience for people of deep understanding, of deep compassion, of deep knowing, being able to be really seen, appreciated, understood in all of the micro nuanced of one's experience as a sensitive human. There's so many dimensions to this. Something that's come through for me with this work is even understanding inner child work at a deeper level, and just healing in general. It's like so many of us, when we start on the healing path, look at the healing as a means to an end, and these wounded parts of us are problems, and there's something to be solved so that now I can be whole. And the system's actually way more brilliant than that. It's way more brilliant than we can, project onto, and its limitation in that way. The brilliance lies in the fact that there's no part that's actually at a deep fundamental truth in the way. There's no part. because each experience is teaching us, is growing us, is expanding us. And it's not just each external experience, it's each internal experience of, the tension, contraction, trigger is showing up when I just want to be liberated and enjoy. It's like, okay, that's what's here right now. It's the reality of the situation. What if I actually turn towards it? And when I turn towards it, this ego that's bad, we always label the ego as a problem, something to overcome. Well, the parts of our ego that are wounded and need our support or have a story to share with us, there's some wisdom there when we turn towards it with the transpersonal unconditional love that we have access to. When we connect to that part of ourselves and we hold this other part of ourselves that's more human, that's more lower, and I don't mean lower as less than, it's just a lower, more dense frequency. What happens in that space is access to our gifts. It's learning. It's teaching us how to be better humans. It's teaching us how to really cultivate unconditional love, because unconditional love is boundless. It keeps expanding. Our understanding of that at an embodied level keeps increasing. I don't believe it's just this binary thing. It's like that you have it or you don't. We're here to also learn how to cultivate this high level of light and unconditional love towards all of these parts of us that feel wounded or less than, these memories that we have. And those parts, like, you can't have one without the other. They're both teaching one another. They're both supporting one another. The ego is just as important as the soul. And so to me, that's the divine alchemy union, is realizing every nuanced part of the experience, inner and outer, is in a grand conspiracy to bring us into greater states of wholeness. And so that was a little bit of a channel there that I don't even remember the last thing you said, but I'm curious based off what I said, if that resonates.
Yeah, well, just to kind of come back to my like path,
Mm-hmm.
it's been this, it started off, just finding these modalities or having these modalities come into my life that supported me to start processing my emotions. Breath work really came in strong for me. Just the ability to start, okay, processing pain, processing emotions, starting to be able to hold myself more as I just like started to touch in and excavate everything I had not felt, all the pain, all of the unmetabolized energies. And then I kept on just feeling the liberation of that, the alchemy where it was like every time I choose to feel and process what's here, like just to come into the body and be with life and continue to feel this like immense compassion that it would first start with me, but then how I was able to just, my heart was opening to compassion for the people around me and the suffering of humanity and like the opening of the heart, right? That process has just like continued to like accelerate and deepen where like the initiations, get really intense sometimes to have reality kind of offer the perfect situation that's bringing up this really immense level of fear or pain. And as I've journeyed with the template of this alchemy process, of this initiation process, I can see it more and more from this transpersonal level of everything that is happening is this opportunity to transform everything inside of me into compassion, acceptance, and love. And when I'm doing that with myself, And the way I see it too, it's very connected to this process of what is called theosis, of actual embodied union with God and becoming, quote unquote, like God, in the
Mm.
way that our consciousness moves from I'm this small separate person who just needs to protect myself from life and defend myself. It moves from the separation into, oh my God, my own mind is reflecting the nature of God's eternal benevolence. It's more and more that space is being held for me in all of my experiences. And as I alchemize everything inside of me, my ego, my personality self aligns more and more with that consciousness. And that's how I get to show up for the people around me as well. It's a transformation of consciousness that happens first, like this integration and coming into deeper wholeness with ourselves, that then the natural byproduct is all I want is to be a space of compassion and to be able to give love to like the people around me. It's just like this natural unfolding that you don't have to try and be compassionate. You've sat with so much within yourself that naturally like the heart opens and all you want is for other people to be free from suffering as well.
Absolutely.
Does that
And
track? So I feel like I went to like a couple different pieces there.
no, I'm just going with what I feel inspired to move into, which is I know you very well, and I've seen so many of these cycles that you've gone through on such a regular basis, such a devotion to this exact process, which is why you, more than anyone else I know, besides myself, is more apt to support people going through those same cycles because you've shared with me the darkness that has lived within you, that has lived within your mind, and I've seen you go through the cycles of alchemizing it because of your connection to your transpersonal, to your soul, to God is so strong. It creates this foundation of safety. I'll use the word breath, which is breadth. So it's sort of like a width or, just think of wide surface area so that you can go really deep. And when you go really deep, we all have it. We all have this shit. We all have these impurities of darkness from this lifetime, many lifetimes, the collective. There's so much there, and there's so much purification that feels endless to me of what we could do. But what this is all so well and good and amazing. And maybe for some people, it can feel so highfalutin, and bringing it back to maybe more the tangible. I'm curious if you'd be willing to get even a little vulnerable and share a specific initiation of this cycle process, maybe sharing like the content of some of the darkness that your human went through at a certain phase and sort of the gifts of that moment and what transpired on the other side. And you can take a moment if you need to just feel into that, or if something is rising that you want to speak to right now.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many things I could go into. Like, it's
Yep.
a continual process. And I'll just share something that feels pretty fresh. And it's connected to this familiar cycle of I'm I'm bad, I'm wrong. Oh no, life is scary, people aren't safe. Life is unpredictable. I have to protect myself. Like this, it's fear, like fear consciousness of like life is scary. Okay, this is the core of it. This is a code.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectionism as a protection mechanism. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect, quote unquote, whatever that means, that conditioning, if I'm not perfect, I am vulnerable to bad things happening. Like, it just the ways of if I show up perfectly, then I'll be safe. If I show up to this initiation perfectly, I'll be safe. If I show up to this conversation perfectly, I'll be safe. If I show up as the person they want me to be and fawn and people please, abandon myself, then I'll be safe. So this is deeply connected to blueprints of learning to enmesh with other people's energy, learning to abandon self in order to get safety and belonging. So energetic sovereignty is a massive curriculum for my soul in this lifetime. And again, I grew up merging with everyone around me, everyone else's emotions, trying to keep the peace and regulate everyone, because when other people were dysregulated, it was so intense in my system. I would do anything for that to stop. And so who do I have to be, and how do I contort myself to not feel their intense emotions and to, save them, and all of these ways of leaving myself to control the environment and other people. So a recent experience was having someone bring something forward to me about their pain, and feeling like it was um, connected to me, and feeling their activation in that. And
Would you say
what
they were blaming you? That was like there was a projection of like something you did is causing me the pain.
totally. And
Yeah.
so yeah, just being able to, like, from the place I'm at now, I felt activation in my system. I felt like like, wow, this is this is a lot. And I, from being able to witness while also being in it, watched myself go through the different strategies. I watched myself go through the catalog of strategies of how to protect myself, and just watched my nervous system sort through the catalog. Okay, what strategy do we use here? Are we gonna
The
run?
Akashic records of
Yeah,
strategies.
yeah, it's just like, okay, like, we have all these strategies. Which one's
Yeah.
gonna keep us safe and which one's going to make this go away? And it was just so fascinating to be experiencing the full activation, but having more and more capacity and more of the witness. Also being like, and like, we have a lot more agency and choice here. There's more capacity to choose how I respond to this, instead of going into, I watch, oh, a past version of me would have immediately reacted to this, tried to control the situation, defended, like, tried to fix, I'm like, wow, I have so much more spaciousness in my nervous system to be able to feel, okay, something's being stirred for me, that's mine. And then a lot of this is not. A lot of this is not my energy. And yeah, I'm feeling this intensity, but a lot of that is not mine, and I can just kind of, yeah, process the activation that's happening for me. And then it was like more quickly being able to be like, oh, there's just compassion. There's actually a lot of compassion for the experience, where there's obviously pain, there's hurt, there is suffering here. And like, more and more I was able to open to that. But it was interesting to watch myself try and come up with some way of fixing the situation. And it's so funny with the initiations, because they can be so like meta at some point,
Always.
where it was like, there was still some thought process that was like, okay, if I strategize how to show up to this perfectly and do it the right way, okay, that's going to get me safety. Okay, so how do I show up to this perfectly and strategize that? And I came up with an idea of how to show up, but then there was something deeper. It was like, nope, that's still a band-aid. That's still, you're not free. You're not free.
That's one of those things that I call, that we've talked about, like the half truth. It's
right.
like the spiritual solution, but it's really like not a spiritual solution. It's just in the spiritual disguise. And we go through all of those strategies as well along the way till we realize, oh, bullshitting myself at a higher level now.
Right. So it's disguised as like, oh, like I'm a conscious communicator. It's like, okay, there's probably like 80% of that. And then there's 20% of, and I'm like using a people pleaser strategy disguised as like, this is what, this is what a good person does. Like there's so many things. And ultimately, I know my path is getting me into this internal embodiment of love and truth. It's not love if it's just the heart, like, oh, like, it's not truth if it's devoid of compassion and love. There's this beautiful continual weaving into what does it look like to be anchored in truth and embodied in love. And those things are happening at the same time. Love for myself, love for another, and ultimately energetic sovereignty. And the bigger piece of this for me was I'm continuing to reclaim I'm not safe if this goes well. I'm safe regardless. And I just get to contribute my piece. I get to enact my agency in this experience. The agency is who am I choosing to be in this situation? That's my power ultimately. That's what I have control over. What's my 50% in the 100% of this dynamic? All I can do is enact my own embodiment of who do I want to show up to this initiation as. And ultimately for me, it's I want to be in my sovereignty and I want my heart to be open. And so just coming into this place where it's like, if I'm doing that, that's all I got. That's my piece of it. There's a surrender of I don't know how it's going to go, but at some point, like more and more, I'm not trying to control that outcome in order for me to be okay. I'm doing my part and I'm processing what's activating for me and what's mine. And ultimately, the situation ended up unfolding in this really profound way where I just chose to allow the light to move through me, to be like, in this situation, I just want to be someone who's in, regulation and sovereignty and is able to offer compassion and love and to have a boundary around what I'm available for. And it ended up just like being such a healing experience actually. And even if it wasn't, my curriculum is I'm willing to feel whatever I need to feel to be okay with however it goes. And so like one of the biggest pieces I feel for my own curriculum in this energetic sovereignty is not outsourcing my sense of safety with how anyone experiences me, or from this place of if I show up to this initiation perfectly, that means like I'm good and I'm safe. It's like I'm willing to be with the mess of the human experience. And that's huge. Like I have this soul essence that's very crystalline and precise. And I've been so humbled by this human experience and how overwhelming it can feel, how you can't control other people, you can't control what happens at times, but continually like, again, the code isn't I'm safe if everything goes the way I want. It's I'm learning to feel safe in my connection to God, in my connection to my own soul, and in my own agency and choice of I'm always the one who can choose to be who I am in each moment. And ultimately more and more capacity to enact um, divine will, to enact love in any moment. And that's my integrity. That's my piece of it. And that's my building of confidence of being able to show up because of who I'm choosing to be.
Hmm. Beautiful. And there's so many incredible themes that I could go down the rabbit hole with you from that share. And what's coming through is interesting because it's sort of a repeat of what I've talked to you recently about. For anyone listening to that story, Christina often shares so many very high level themes that she has embodied. And it's impossible to really understand them without embodying them. And it's very important that if you want to embody them, you throw away your concepts of what you think we're talking about, what she's talking about. And what I'm going to bring it back to, which is what all the masters talk about, is presence. And I've realized recently that I had a concept around what presence is. And there's been times on plant medicine or very intense life experiences, we'll call them initiations, where I'm trying to lean into, well, I just need to be present here. I'm leaning into my concept of what I think presence is, and it's not bringing me what I want. It's because when it's a concept, it's something that's familiar and known that you can return back to and sort of like feel comfortable, and there's this sense of control with it. What I heard in your share, Christina, is that in order to break these patterns, we actually have to come into deep presence in the moment. Because when you're in deep presence, you can notice oh, wow, my mind's going through the catalog of strategies that it wants to go through. It does that a lot. Now I can make this conscious choice to just wait this out and see what happens and just notice my sensations.
Mhm.
Versus maybe a concept of what it means to be present is like, I'm just going to pay attention to what's happening. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to notice my breath. I'm going to notice the environment. Like all of these are portals into presence. But what presence actually is the deep unknown. It's the deep emptiness of meeting the moment in a way that has no words, because as soon as you put words to it, it's been defined into a concept. And so the best we can do is what the masters all say is like, don't look at my finger pointing to the moon. Use it as a guidepost to see the moon. So use the invitations of presence, pausing, noticing to practice those things and find your own embodied experience of what it means to be present and to break patterns. So many of us want these strategies. Like, what's the tool? And it's very popular on spiritual social media platforms to give people like the life hack. There's a foundational mastery that's so simple, yet it's the deepest way, which is, can you find in yourself the courage to meet the moment without projecting any strategies from your past, including spiritual strategies from your past, onto the present moment? And what I have found is I'm also getting initiated into whole new levels with presence and being presented life experiences that I have no context for, no fucking context for. And an old version of me would have gone into a lot of contraction. Not that I'm not going into contraction, but a lot more contraction if I hadn't cultivated trust in God. Everything that's showing up is supposed to be here. And I'm going to lean into trusting that I don't need to have a strategy, technique, concept to apply to this. It's safe for me to breathe and not know what to do and wait until that comes in, until that drops in. And that is the dance of life, I believe. It's the response. And that response drops in once we empty ourselves into the moment.
Yeah, and thanks so much for that. I felt inspired by your weaving of like continuing to let go of the concepts, something that I've been continually deepening into. is just, well, first of all, like, I'm really stoked about experiencing reality as this holographic experience that's always mirroring me back to myself. So whatever's being mirrored back to me is such a profound opportunity to deepen into understanding my psyche, understanding my perceptions, and ultimately understanding the identity that is generating how I'm seeing the world. And it's actually like all of these things moving out of the template of like, life is scary and oh no, I'm this victim to life and everything's so hard, being like, wow, everything in my reality is getting to bring me back into my own experience of myself. And ultimately, when we have tools and we gain mastery around that process, it's a process of liberation into deeper levels of truth. And so being able to experience, like, basically the example I gave before, okay, that experience is happening. That experience on one level is neutral. It doesn't mean anything. I'm making
Mm.
it mean something based on my identity and based on my perceptions. So for one person, that could be like, oh, words on a keyboard. Okay. For me, that brought me into, I'm unsafe. This is scary. And I had a certain context based on a belief system, an identity, a context that was true for me based on my past. So through that process, I could just keep living in that context of people are a threat, I'm unsafe, I have to control this experience. And I could let it deepen me into, huh, curious. I'm actually like projecting a lot of my own meaning onto this of what it means about me and how that would, influence how I act in the situation. And instead of doing that, being like, how can I liberate myself from the core identity that this is unsafe and that I'm unsafe? And through that unraveling of that core identity, then the perception changes, where I'm no longer seeing life through that same lens of how do I protect myself from the threat? It's like, oh, if I know I'm safe, I'm free to just dance with life as it is. And ultimately, that shifts who I get to be. If I'm not unsafe, then I don't have to protect myself or defend anything. My heart actually just gets to be like, oh, I'm just experiencing a person who's having emotions. Wow. I get to be with that. And there's more freedom and space to enact a different storyline. And this is the breaking of the cycle. The breaking of
Mhm.
the cycle is taking all that information and using it to like unravel these core perceptions, contexts, concepts, identities. And there's so much life force and truth that gets liberated. And I will also say, nuanced, somatically, this feels intense for me to burn through the like, I'm unsafe, the nervous system strategies, the old fears, like, oh my God, I remember this went badly before, to actually somatically process it. There's a mental aspect and there's emotions here. There's actual charge in the system that's needing to unravel. But the point of this is to move from this place of life just like playing out and just being this like random thing and it's happening to me, to being able to experience life and be like, wow, this is actually an opportunity that's dismantling my old concept of what life even is. And that's what it's meant to be doing right now.
That's the brilliance. And I'm curious if you would be open to talking a little bit personally about your experience with this process as somebody who remembers parallel past lives, because there's going to be some listeners who do. And I feel like you have such deep medicine for them. And then for the ones who don't, I want this just awareness to expand. I want people to understand and see you so they can see others that reality is not what we think it is. Like when somebody is in front of us, there's a human in front of us suffering and they're projecting. it's very easy to get into a limited perception of what is happening and be like, oh, this person's an asshole, or like
Mhm.
the myriad of projections. When the further I go into all of these paths, the more I realize the less I know and the less I ever knew. And like all those times that I was angry at somebody is absurd, because we're all like doing our best with an absurd amount of content that we're processing at an unconscious level. And so all of these things are happening at a conscious level that are triggering this ancient multidimensional nervous system that's red flags going off, and people are just trying to feel okay. Right. And so you're somebody who's gone so deep into these realms that, and I am as well, that we no longer, for the most part, project. And we can really, like, your story was a testament to that. It's like you could have responded with a lot of strategies in one direction or the other side of the spectrum, where you're like you said, people pleasing. It's like you could have really defended and been aggressive and held your ground and all these things. And instead you allow that whole process because you're more aware of all the variables, and you're still not aware of all the variables. None of us are. It's like it's beyond human recognition. But I would love if you could share a little bit of what it's like to be Christina, the multidimensional oracle. Like, this is like your opportunity on a platform to talk about these things that are so taboo and strange in our culture, and it's becoming more normal, but like helping to normalize it a bit.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, so my path in general has been a really mystical process of deep remembrance of many past lives, past timelines, like deep soul aspects, soul remembrance, especially priestess lifetimes, lifetimes in temples, very specifically, also lifetimes of incredible levels of multidimensional trauma, fractures from God, like the Crusades, like really, really, really deep trauma that I feel like for me, I also, just to have some context, have a 12th house stellium. So I have a lot of planets in the 12th house, which is very much like these deeper unconscious realms, deep karma, like the transmutation of like karmic darkness into liberation. So I feel like it's a big
Oh,
curriculum for me.
that
And
tracks.
yeah. And so it's been really interesting as this process has deepened for me, and I've remembered and also embodied the wisdom and the codes from many soul aspects and many other timelines into this remembrance of more and more of who I am as a multidimensional being. I've also simultaneously processed very, very, very deep and sometimes very intense feeling karma. And there will be like situations in life where, like, on the surface level, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but and you've seen this happen, but it will trigger something so deep for me, like like paralyzing levels of fear. And more I've learned to follow that thread, because that'll be like, oh, something happened, and now I'm feeling this fear of I'm going to get kicked out of the community, the tribe. I'm going to be exiled. Um, like these deep
Murdered.
murder, like I'm going to be
Yeah.
persecuted. So like being able to not gaslight myself and say, this is overreaction. You shouldn't be feeling it. It's not that big of a deal, into like, well, it does feel like a big deal. Why is that? And being able to more and more journey into these different timelines and lifetimes, and actually retrieve pieces of my soul that were fractured by whatever it's being triggered. And that it's not a problem. It's actually, all these things are an opportunity to journey into these realms and reclaim fractured soul parts that are trapped in these realms that were traumatized, and to more and more embody this process of multidimensional soul retrieval, where there is a process of actually somatically moving these epigenetic memories and these past life memories, and continually repairing these timelines. And as we get those soul parts back, like the natural result is feeling more of a sense of safety and unraveling the deep imprints of that wounding. And then the result of that is no longer operating from the protective strategies. Like, well, I need to hide. There's just this feeling of acknowledging this was real for me. And okay, that's not actually what's happening now. So the process for me has felt, yeah, quite intense, especially as I've gone into like deeper and more advanced descent processes. And more, the capacity grows to relate to the process as intelligent, where it's no longer like, I wish I wasn't like this. And I wish like normal
Right.
things weren't so triggering for me. And I wish I could like not experience this intense fear. But like even Richard Rudd of Gene Keys says this, and I read this and it stuck with me, of fear is the raw material for the higher states. Every time I've gone through this portal where I am alchemizing deep levels of epigenetic, ancestral DNA level survival programming, I experience a DNA activation and upgrade. That is a very real thing where I will go into the underworld and feel everything that's coming up, and I will emerge blazing with Shakti, my eyes piercing through the veils, being able to see deeper into multidimensional reality. And ultimately, this is the process of how so many of my gifts have come online, to be able to see through the veils into the underworld, into the higher realms, into different parallel realities. It's through the descent process and the alchemy of moving through these these portals.
So cool. And your experience of it, I believe, is so unique because you get to have the sight of it so clearly compared to, most humans. And this isn't to say that most humans don't have the same exact material or energy systems that you're carrying, as far as they've lived many lives possibly, and they're living parallel lives currently with their energies, and they have traumas that they're carrying from all these. But you get to swim in all of those waters and really understand things at a very deep and nuanced level, and come back and you know give us the fruits of that, which I know has been so painful for you. And there's a reclaiming once there's an understanding that it's your role, and it's a sense of belonging that you feel is like, oh, this is my sacred role. Like, this is what I do for my people. And it's not even like, grit your teeth and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. This is my responsibility. It becomes actually more pleasurable and erotic the more that we can actually go into these things. And I'm just speaking because I know you, and I have the same experience of my specific initiations of what used to feel like hell realms. And now, I mean, you and I play with this shit like at such hilarious shamanic theater levels. Like, as these parts are coming up, like, we can recognize it in each other and bring so much play into it. And it changes the entire experience of, the boogeyman is here, I got to deal with him, to like, I wonder what's going to be birthed from this. And we joke all the time of like, how do we record this? Because it creates art. It's like the birthing of art. It's fascinating. If we had a reality show, we'd be viral AF. Like,
I want a reality show so bad, because the stuff that we go through on a daily basis to like embody our multidimensional avatar soul selves, and then like birth new realities of sovereignty. It is hilarious. And yeah, I think that's part of it too. It's like, as there's like more and more purification of the like conditioned self into the embodiment of the soul self, the soul is able to actually be in the perception of, this is all an evolutionary process. I signed up for this. I came here to learn in this way. And it's so funny, like with my priestess sisters, we'll say that we've integrated an initiation when we are hilariously laughing about it and being like, that was so
That's it.
ridiculous. And be like, sorry, girl, like that was really intense. Like, I'm sorry I was on the phone with you, like having a panic attack. Like, everything's fine now. I got the code, freed myself from whatever that weird prison was that I was in. And and it's just like more and more there is this levity and this lightness that is the soul
Mhm.
that's holding space and actually transmuting it more and more easily. Like things just move a lot easier when we're, again, we've talked about this, when you're in the self with a capital S. The self is like, this is happening. And like, there's such a higher frequency that the alchemy is just like transmuting with more ease, less resistance, and more attachment to like the survival part of it. And it starts to
Mhm.
be, it's fun. And ultimately, when we're in these greater and greater experiences of our multi-dimensional self, reality gets very interesting, where everything
Mhm.
is this hologram that's reflecting things back. And like there's this mystical unfolding of just like this divine intelligence and perfection that's weaving through all of it. And I feel like you and I both have this medicine that we carry of bringing humor and levity and being able to like really like laugh and experience joy about these processes that can feel really deep and really intense, but there's like this cosmic giggle that comes at the end because it's like so much life force is being liberated, so much like eros gets liberated through the alchemical process of transforming this density and these patterns into life force, love, liberated consciousness. And one thing I'll just put a pin in here, because I feel like it's important too, is as we go through these processes, we are cultivating this frequency and this internal experience and this internal fertility to create and to birth. So it's coming into this, internal embodiment, and from that place there is this overflow where this frequency, this energy, this liberation, this truth, it wants to be shared. And that's what I believe is like this organic creation template. As we go through our initiations, as we alchemize our trauma into our teachings, our karma into our dharma, the most
Mm.
natural thing is that it overflows. And not only are we creating from this place of inspiration and this offering and this prayer in our businesses, but literally our fields are becoming so sovereign and so charged with light that we are creating entire realities everywhere that we go. Our frequency is overriding denser frequencies in our environments, and we stop being at the will of life and at this like kind of reaction to life, and we start actually creating entire worlds from our internal expression. And I'm experiencing that reality every single day, and it blows my mind, and I want that for anyone who feels inspired by this potential.
100%. What we're speaking to, just to give context to listeners, is not something that I was at all attuned to for most of my life. I would have heard this and been like, that's so woo and absurd and ridiculous that this idea of your frequency and your essence is transforming every space that you go into. And, it's like creating whole new universes on the external based off of your internal. And that could not feel truer to me now. Like just this embodied sense. Like it's unbelievable the reflections I get from the people who are close to me and who can see me and feel me when I go into a space. My essence illuminates the fuck out of a lot of stuff and amplifies the fuck out of a lot of stuff that it has to be dealt with, and it creates quantum shifts of catalyzation. And I didn't realize that this was who I am. I didn't realize that people's essence do these things. Like I used to read when I was getting into spirituality about, the Indian masters, and you just go to sit with them and feel enlightened and ecstasy, and people would just start spontaneous crying. I was fascinated by that, and I didn't believe it. I thought it was, people just mentally kind of creating that reality. It was like all hype, right? Having my own experience of it now and just seeing what it does, and it has only been unlocked by me purifying and amplifying my own essence and coming into love with my own essence and love and connection and trust with the transpersonal, with God, with all of life, with my soul. That now has amplified my external. Like with every month, it's like getting more, it's, as you know, getting more and more bizarre, but also just that piece around my essence. I can see it so strongly. I feel people shifting, not everyone, but there's people shifting immediately as I just come into contact with them and just like stare them in the eye. Like, just like, whoa, our fields have a frequency of transformation and giveaway. That is the essence of our fields. And most people's fields are filled with a lot of stuff that's not their field. So that frequency is quite distorted. And then you've got other people that they're interacting with where their frequencies are distorted too. So they can't even receive anything anyway, because they have so many distortions and protection patterns that's blocking their ability to receive and see. So that's why I sort of said people who can see me, meaning they're at least open enough. They're not in full contraction. I feel the impact of my beingness, which I thought was absurd for most of my life. I thought you had to do things, you had to be knowledgeable and mentally understand concepts and share on them and teach people that way, and that you had to read and learn it in your mind. And that's something I don't even know if I have the ability to do anymore. First of all, like everything I read from that place, it just doesn't work like it used to when I was younger. I'm massively impacted by people's fields who are liberated, more liberated being, or beings more in their power, who are more sovereign beings. I feel their essence and I see them. I'm like, holy shit, that's a powerful motherfucker. And, my teachers, when I get in their field, the ones that I'm going to learn from, it's the same archetypal relationship as the Indian guru sitting in the mountain, and the disciples go just to be with the teacher and sit. It's the same thing happening as I seek my teachers out on Zoom, or I go to a retreat that they're holding. I don't even necessarily care. I do care, but there's so much less of a care about what they're saying from a verbal, mental knowledge base. It's being in their frequency. I feel myself altered, shifted, DNA upgrades, as you spoke to. And so that was a tangent, but I just
No,
feel really excited by that. This is it.
This is like the core of what I'm like obsessed with studying is entrainment fields. So becoming this entrainment field, and we can see this in, like network spinal. It's like, oh, the field, they're holding this field and your body is entraining to a higher coherence. We are that. Our fields are entrainment fields. And there's a heavy lifting in the back end where you're really doing this deep soul alchemy and this energetic purification and this inner work and energetic work to come into your own soul's essence and clarity and coherence. But once you're anchored in that, the heavy lifting, quote unquote, on the other side, it gets a lot easier. Like I'm sitting in tea ceremony and I'm in silence pouring people tea, and people are having huge activations, remembrances. People will be having exact insights and anchoring codes that I just went through an initiation to anchor. I did the work of becoming this field that is offering like this capacity for a lot to happen for people because it's a higher level of coherence. And the way energy works mechanically is a lower coherence is going to entrain to a higher coherence. So literally
Mhm.
doing the work to be coherent in your soul's essence and in the truth of who you are, like things start happening in your field. So like, I'll have clients come to me and they'll start to reveal like their deepest shame, and they feel safe to start revealing and exposing more of themselves because my entrainment field of just this like compassion and light just starts pulling up the things that have been hidden, the places that have been stuck, and it just starts to transmute and transform. Deep grief will start to come up, like deep emotions that have been repressed, not because I'm trying to make that happen. It's just a natural process of them coming into more coherence through that field. And so, yeah, you do the heavy work through going through the initiations, through moving through this alchemy, this purification. And then, like, the field does so much of the work as we are continually liberating into more and more of our sovereignty in our wholeness and our union with God. It's just contagious. And fear consciousness, separation consciousness seems to be contagious, and so is liberated
Yeah.
abundant life
It's
force that wants to
it's just as
overflow and like
contagious.
nourish and and create a portal of liberation for everyone.
I would lo I would love to share about my first tea ceremony with you if you're open to that.
I would love that. It's such a great example.
Yeah. So, when we first met, you had invited me to sit with in tea with you. I don't remember if you were inviting me like group or privately to begin with, but you offer both experiences. And I had lived in Asheville, North Carolina for 6 years and had some experience with tea ceremony. People really love to go to the cool tea places and have the really high quality teas and talk and everything. And I loved doing that, but I felt super caffeinated and just like, like that was the tea ceremony. And there were a couple of more official, what would you call it? Cha Dao style, um, ceremonies where we're sitting in silence and there's a structure and everything. And they were great, meaning like I enjoyed it. It was peaceful. Um, but I wouldn't have used the word profound at all. And part of that was just where I was in my life, like what I was able to receive. But there was another component to it. So you invited me, and I was like, okay. Like I wasn't like stoked on it. I was like, yeah.
Mm.
And I was so busy at the time. I was so like, I need to be doing, I need to be doing, I need to be doing with my business and all this stuff. And so the idea of just like slowing down and sitting in silence for tea was like, I don't know about that. But I eventually took your invitation and you served me tea in a private ceremony in your space in the temple room, the tea room. And to give a little bit of context, I have had this connection to this channel for, I don't know, 6, 7 years at least, that I haven't understood until recently how to really access more regularly. So this channel, this inner channel would open. It started opening when I was doing work with Genius Frequency, which is what I'm trained in one of their methodologies now. But years ago, I was receiving care in Asheville from Genius Frequency methodologies. And I would notice in my own practice with sounding, or if I was on plant medicine, I could sort of access this, at the time, bizarre energy that would come through that felt like, I could stop it if I wanted to. But if I don't, it just sounds sort of chaotic. These sounds are coming in. Is this offensive? I sound like a Native American chanting. Like these strange things were coming in, these very primordial sounds, big spinal movements, some absurdity that just wanted to come through as noises and whistling. And I really shut down that part of myself for a long time. I'd allow it to come, and then it would kind of freak me out. I'm like, I'm just this white person. Like, what am I doing? This is offensive type of thing. And as I've come into more and more of my soul medicine, I've realized and been shown that's a big part of my gift, to be able to channel and to be able to sort of be courageous enough to do it through all of the complex, nuanced, distorted cultural beliefs around cultural appropriation and there's so many sensitivities within all of those realms that it takes somebody super connected to their path to God as a white person to come forth and be that channel and sound like a Native American chanting, or just an indigenous person doing kind of shamanic breath work, sounding, playing instruments, just releasing and surrendering to what can turn into what I call shamanic psychosis, where it's just like craziness. And it's this purifying, some will call it Kundalini energy, that's going through me, and it's helping release sort of the identity structures and the ways that we contort ourselves to fit in and be seen, because it goes into such absurd realms. So it just cleanses all that, and then truth can come through, and then also this healing energy can come through. So it's something I can actually access as a healer. And something I've come into much deeper connection with just in the past 6 months. And I feel braver to access it more. And I feel like I can do it more on demand versus it would only come during plant medicine or these certain times. So when I sat in tea ceremony with you, within a couple of bowls, I just felt this tension in my body, these somatic uncomfortable sensations. So I started sounding and just sounding more. And before I knew it, I was going into a huge portal of expression in the shamanic psychosis, and felt so intuitively this permission slip in your field that this is supposed to be happening. It was the biggest expression while sober that I had ever experienced. And when I say sober, now I don't even know if I use that word, because the tea medicine's so powerful that to me and you, it's like a plant medicine. But, traditionally speaking, it's considered to be sober. And yeah, you held such profound space in that process. And then you went into your channel and just held space for me, and you were speaking in light language, and I'm crying and going through some form of purifying healing portal that felt so cathartic, pleasurable, safe, like I had come home to something. I had met a deeper dimension of myself. And we have joked about that so many times. Like, this is what you mean by tea ceremony. There's massive activations possible because of your field and what you're merging and bringing in with the magic of tea ceremony.
Yeah, that was amazing. And for me, the tea medicine has been such a remembrance continuously. First of all, such a huge continual cellular purification working with the tea, but a continual remembrance of primordial consciousness. And that's what I mean by like, what is the soul? Who are we as humans? Who are we to God? What are we doing on this earth? Tea for me is a plant teacher that has revealed to me and activated in my DNA remembrance of like this primordial consciousness of our oneness with the earth and with God, God and Gaia through our channels, living temples of this, primordial remembrance. And ultimately, what happened was your body, your cellular memory remembered itself at a deeper level. And I feel like tea is
Mm,
such an activator of this original remembrance of who we are as humans. Simply, it's like I watched your DNA remember itself at a deeper level. And it's such an honor to be able to hold space for those activations. Cause then after that, there was a lot of purification of your personality that then unfolded to like actually entrain into your embodiment as a channel of primordial soul energy, which you definitely are. And tea is such a purifier into our clear, like multidimensional channeling.
thinking about the timing of that, and I always equate it, me going into such a descent process after we met as, just meeting you. But that probably was a huge part of it, that tea ceremony.
Mm.
Like, bro, you're not here to be like a 60-hour push yourself beyond your limits, showing up content every day, like a full on generator masculine. You're a mystic. You're an
Yeah.
ancient intergalactic shaman. What are you doing? It's like,
Yeah, you're not here
blah,
to work
blah,
hard
blah.
in the matrix realm. You're here to work hard in the soul realm. And then the like work, quote unquote, is just your transmission, like your emanation of remembrance. So it was like,
That's how
I
my
feel like
soul
the
talks to me. It's like,
polarity and
bro,
you were trying to work really hard. And I was like, no, I think your soul's really big. So you're just going to like go into your soul now.
I'm like, well, I don't wanna. I wanna keep
I don't want to let
working,
go of
and
these things that I hate, but I'm defined by them. No!
I want to stay in my loops of suffering. Let me suffer. That was
Yeah,
that
such
was
a
the
huge catalyst to a
that was the
bigger,
catalyst,
yeah.
and such a massive teaching for the trust in these processes, so that now when they show up, there's way less resistance, which also means way less time in the muck. It's like you can, and there's a time and place for lengthy muck. There always probably always will be throughout our lives, but way less of those moments. And it becomes so masterful that it can just be this like everyday thing, like in the muck and then out. I've learned, like, let's go. There's such a spectrum of the phase, but with this expanded trust in all that is conspiring for my greatest, who am I to be in resistance to what's here? It's like, it's gonna be way better on the other side than anything I could come up with, conjure, create. So what am I really dying to except a greater version of myself?
I mean, this is so big to touch on because there's a continual dying to the smaller self, to the conditioned
Dying
personality
to
self.
the old self.
And
Yes.
I feel like as, we go through these processes of death and rebirth in these cycles, and when we're going through that, it can feel so terrifying at times to really let go because we have such a definition of ourselves and such a sense of safety in that specific form. I'll just speak personally. As I've gone through that process so many times, more and more, I let it be quite ecstatic, and I let the death and the dying be quite ecstatic because I feel it liberating my consciousness from these confines more than it being like, oh no, I'm letting go of something I need. Being like, if it's being released, I don't need it anymore. So just like continuing to open the body more and more into like this eros of the descent, where it's like everything that's being shed is just adding to this fertility of my soul rather than clinging on to dear life. Of course, I still do that. If I'm going through a bigger death where I'm like, wait, I thought I was this person and now I'm just not. And like, oh, like, but I feel more and more like these purification processes, the context of all that's being shed is things I don't need anymore. What would it look like to release my resistance to that and know that what's on the other side of that is me as a more free version of myself, more of my soul expressing itself through this vessel.
Amen. Christina Marie, we have so much more to talk about. I think we did a phenomenal introduction to the collective frequency that you and I will be putting out. This was sort of the like foundation to give listeners a little bit of a background. You know, you have a very human past and you're a very multidimensional transpersonal being. And really the union of those two have created such a phenomenal expression of soul coming into human earth realm form. And I'm so honored to have been blessed by your frequency, blessed by your devotion to yourself, to making the world a better place, to supporting others on their mission, which you've supported me so much on my mission. And yeah, my prayer, which isn't even needed, it's just the prayer that's praying and being prayed through us. And we have become the prayer that we continue to weave and support each other and be divine reflections for one another on this path and continue our devotion to the soul and the higher realms of what we know is possible.
Uh, Thank you so much for inviting me on. I have so much fun going into so many different realms with you. I love the way our frequencies dance and play and activate and reflect. And yeah, this felt like a good foundation. And I feel excited for what else we're going to be bringing through. And my prayer is that anyone who listened to this received some kind of medicine, remembered more of who they are, felt empowered, felt excited, inspired. We are living in really profound times. I know my soul is excited about this incarnation and the consciousness that's becoming so available to us and what's possible to create both within our own experience of life, but also as soul family, as collectives, as souls coming together to amplify and support each other in actually, yeah, bringing our missions forth and really doing this thing in the real world, impacting people, bringing our medicine forth. So thank you, Joshua, for being such a divine reflection for me. And yeah, I just hope anyone who listened received something fruitful from our time together.
Mm. Amen. Aho, thy will be done. And so it is. Thank you, dear listeners. Thank you, dear Christina. Until next time, be well. Thank you for joining me on the Soul Body Wholeness podcast. If you like this episode, you can support the journey by rating and subscribing wherever you listen. I invite you to follow me on Instagram at Soul Body Wholeness for more insights and to stay up to date with my current offerings. And if you feel called to work with me directly, I invite you to visit my website at www.soulbodywholeness.life. I offer somatic alchemy sessions and soul purpose initiation journeys that awaken your inner healer, reconnect you to your innate wholeness, and ignite your soul's deepest purpose. I invite you to carry this resonance with you as you move throughout your day and return anytime you need a reminder of your courage, your wholeness, and your light. Blessings, old friend.